With all of the skill talk going about and me making a video on skills, I decided to actually go and explore a older skill, wording. Now, in this video, I want to talk about a specific problem with wording and why I think it failed the poll. Don't get me wrong, wording had many problems and it failed the poll for many reasons. For example, the fact that players didn't feel in control of the skill even though they were in control of the skill. So at the end of the day, wording failed the poll for many reasons. But I think there's one specific issue that I think doomed the skill from the very beginning. And that specific issue is the fact that it didn't have what I like to call the skill or a core expression, right? A core identity. What I mean by this, and to sort of explain this, essentially, if you go into the game and you look in your skill tab, you look at fishing, you look at mining, you look at smithing, crafting, thieving, whatever skill it is, right? Every RuneScape skill has a core identity, has a core expression, right? With fishing, you fish. With smithing, you smith. With crafting, you craft. With thieving, you thieve stuff, right? All of them have a core idea that expands into other things. And the way it expands is usually by asking or answering three questions. So let's say that our core expression is fishing. We want to make something about fishing, right? We want a fishing skill to be in the game. You can answer three questions. How are you going to fish? Where are you going to fish? And what are you going to fish? And when you answer these three questions, they can have many answers. And in a way, there's no right answer, right? You can fish a abundance of fish. How are you going to fish? Maybe you get in a ship, or maybe you just fish ashore. There's plenty of ways that you can actually fish around the game, right? But it all started with that core expression that gave way to these three questions: what, how, and where, right? And that's exactly what wording from the very beginning already lacked. If you ask players, what was wording about? What is the core expression? What did you do with wording, right? And many wouldn't know what to answer, mainly because wording was confusing. It was all over the place and it just was a very unfocused skill, right? At the end of the day, sure, you could imbue certain magic armor that you could craft by using magic or whatever, right? But then it was also about certain AoE type things, boosts they would get. And then it was reworked into also having some summoned creatures or whatever. I don't even remember exactly. And then eventually it got reworked into shamanism. Because I guess Shagax doesn't never know how to fucking quit. But, I mean, obviously I'm joking, and I already talked about shamanism, so I'm not going to talk about it in this video. I already talked plenty on my last one. But yeah, essentially wording was very unfocused. You don't necessarily know what wording was specifically about, because wording lacked that core expression that led to those three questions being answered. In a way, it felt like wording was actually designed the other way around, right? Wording was designed like, okay, we're going to do this, and actually we can give this as reward, and then we can do this and that and the other, and then we're going to grab all of this thing, put it into a bit of molten metal, and then we're going to try and fuse everything together, right? And it just didn't come out right. And in a way, the skill was doomed since the very beginning. A skill lacking in expression, especially in old school RuneScape, when we didn't have a skill before, and when only we have one other skill being pulled before, was essentially just doomed to fail. And that's exactly what happened to the skill. And that's another problem, which is wording also felt like he was trying to fix a lot of the problems that the game has, like for example with the item sync and with invention, which is again another thing that I'm not gonna touch on, but I have a video about it. That, yeah, cool, oh, games economy and stuff like that, but is the skill fun to train? Because when you are designing a skill, and I'm gonna reiterate this again like I did in my invention video, when you are designing a skill, the most basic thing you should focus on, besides the skill does it fit into the game, is it fun to engage with? It's not is it fun to train, is it fun to engage with, right? When you're engaging with a skill, are you having fun? Because if the answer is no, you already fucking failed when it comes to designing the skill, right? And that's exactly the problem with designing a skill backwards. Because when you are first concerned about how a skill is going to fix the economy or the health of the game or an item sync or this or that or the other, you're not asking yourself, are players going to have fun? interacting with the skill. So you're walking backwards. You're essentially saying this skill is going to fix X, Y, Z, and then we're going to like make the skill entirely, and then maybe players will have fun interacting with it. But a skill that is supposed to fix the alpha in the game, in a way, it's kind of idiotic to start by that, because by starting by that, you're already defeating the purpose of the skill in the first place. And for example, taking invention, right? Invention is an amazing item sink. But the only reason as to why invention is an amazing item sink is because people want to interact with the skill. The skill is fun to train, it provides a lot of rewards, it's a system that people really want to engage with. That's why it's a good item sink. Invention wasn't a good item sink first and then a fun skill later. The reason as to why invention is a good item sink is because it's a fun skill, not the other way around, right? Invention is fun regardless of it being an item sink or not, and that's exactly why it's such a great item sink. But when you try and design an item sink that, is just there for the sake of being an item sink, chances are you're going to make a skill that isn't fun to train, that is going to defeat the purpose of being an item sink. Because if people don't want to train the skill, they're not going to interact with it. They're not going to interact with it, they're not going to use the item sink. Therefore, the skill becomes a bad item sink. So when it comes to designing a skill, be it warding or any other skill, and warding especially suffered from this, confusing skill with ideas taken all over the place that was meant to fix problems with the game and was designed backwards from what it should have been designed. And that is pretty clear in the skill itself, and that's exactly why it failed, it's exactly why it was so confusing. And again, look, I'm not attributing this because, oh, the skill failed because it didn't have a core expression or a core identity. Of course, the skills can still be good or can still make it if they don't have a good core expression or core identity. When it comes to RuneScape, though, most of them do have that. And that is the first step to making a good skill. Because, sure, you can tell me, hey, but fire making has a good core expression and it's not a fun skill to interact with. Yes, that can happen. What I'm saying, however, is that one of the first bases that you need to clear is the core expression of the skill. Because it's much easier to make a skill that is fun to train and it's fun to engage with if the core expression is solid than not. You can still fail at making a skill that is fun to engage with if you have a core expression, but it's much harder to make a good skill that doesn't have one, right? And that is exactly why warding was doomed to fail since the beginning, right? Again, not only reason why it failed, but I think it should be a good lesson on how we view skills in the game, how we look at skills in the game, and how we should want skills to be done in the future.